Hi, good evening, everyone. Settle down, please. We've got a bit of a busy agenda tonight. Um, I'm, 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 um, I'm Councillor Tony Lukey from Osterley and Springgrove, and I chair this area forum, the Hounslow South, Isleworth, and Osterley and Springgrove Forum. May I ask my colleagues to introduce themselves from that side, coming over here, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Unsa. I'm Tony's fellow councillor in Austin Springgrove Ward. Hello everyone.
Hello, good evening. Councillor Sayaraza from Hounslow South Ward.
I'm Councillor Salman Shaheen, Councillor for Isleworth Ward and Cabinet Member for Recreation, Public Spaces and Parking.
I'm Councillor Karen Smith from Hounslow South.
Councillor John Stratter from Isleworth Ward.
Hi, I'm Aftab Siddiqui, councillor from Osterley Springgrove Ward, Unsa and Tony's companion there.
Right. We've got. I hope you've enjoyed the food. I bet there's still quite a bit left. Apologies for absence. Any declarations of interest or other communications from members? We've got apologies for absence from Councillor Tom Bruce from Hounslow South Ward and Councillor Sue Sampson from Isleworth Ward. Any declarations of interest? Any of these things on the agenda that are of any interest? I mean, everything's of interest, but anything that you might be involved in that you want to talk about, declare right now. No? Good. Thank you, councillors. All right. I mean, those of you who can see it, we've got the minutes of the last meeting held on the 25th of September, which took place at West Thames College. Anybody got any comments on the minutes, if you've seen them? Should we? Okay. Any matters arising that anybody wants to raise? Yeah, good. Let's see what we get through on throughout the meeting, and we'll pick things up there if need be. All right. Thank you. At the last meeting, we had an item on planning enforcement. Various other enforcements. The council does a lot of enforcing, attempts to do a lot of enforcing, governed by legislation. Nothing that we can make up ourselves. But it's the way that we, as a local authority, interpret legislation in order to deliver and in order to respond to residents. Impacts of certain planning, particularly. Today we've got 5 items on enforcement. We've got officers here, gladly to we appreciate them coming out to introduce housing enforcement, antisocial behaviour and community safety, noise monitoring, environmental enforcement, parking enforcement, and highways enforcement. And each of them, where are they going to sit, these people? I know they're going to sit there. They're going to have mics. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you've got the roving mic as well. So how this works? If you haven't been before, we'll have presentations. We'll have questions from councillors if they've got any questions to ask the presenters, and then we offer the opportunity for residents to ask officers questions. If anything arises later on or during the meeting that we can't answer immediately, we'll take your contact details. We've got Christopher here, Christopher Jarvis, who's our community development officer for this area, and other members of staff from the council who will take your contact details, and we'll get back to you. So let's kick off with housing enforcement. We've got Pat Gilmore coming up here. She's head of housing enforcement, which is the enforcement of houses of multiple occupation, HMOs, which we do license as a local authority. So if you when you're ready, we've got. Oh, that's not, you know, nobody can see that, but that's all right. See, talk to it, and we can. No, it's Isleworth Public Hall. You know, it's still back in the 19th century in some respects. But if you talk, and we'll go on from there. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, Pat Gilmore, and I deal with private sector housing enforcement, private sector housing standards. Is it on? Here? Yeah. Okay, thanks. Right. I just want to start off and just give you an overview of all the different things that we deal with. We deal with HMO license applications from landlords. So we've got a mandatory HMO licensing and additional licensing in Hounslow, which means that most HMOs in the borough are licensable. So 3 or more unrelated people in 2 or more households sharing facilities, they will need a license. And in addition to that, where a property's been converted into self-contained flats, and those flats haven't been converted, you know, legally with building regulations, they are actually they are defined as a HMO as well, and they come under our additional licensing scheme. But all the flats have to be rented, and they all have to be in the control of one landlord. So we also, as well as dealing with the applications, once we've licensed a property, we will do licensing checks, and also inspections. We also, so that's for the licensed properties. Many properties are unlicensed, and we get quite a lot of reports from residents and other agencies, so we also enforce against landlords who haven't licensed. Moving on from HMOs, there are other, you know, single dwelling properties and family rented accommodation where the landlord, where they've got disrepair, and you know the landlord's not dealing with that. We again will come out and inspect the property and make sure that the landlord complies with housing standards. We also, you know, deal with public nuisance, maybe properties, filthy and verminous properties. And also we deal with private residential empty properties. We try to, where they've been long-term empty, we aim to try and get them back into use. And also quite often, sometimes they become a nuisance themselves, overgrown gardens, etc., neglect, and we'll deal with that. So the next few slides is really just to go in a bit more detail in those. So when we get an HMO license application in, I just want to explain to you what we consider, what we can and cannot consider. HMO licensing is separate to planning, so a landlord needs a planning permission and a HMO license application, and the two are separate. So for licensing, in order, if the landlord complies with the national standards and HMO standards, so that's things like enough bathroom and toilet and kitchen facilities, fire safety, gas safety, electrical safety, all around the condition of the house. If he complies with that, then we must give them the license. As well as that, on the other side, the landlord must be fit and proper, and the definition of fit and proper under the Housing Act is basically that they haven't got any convictions against certain offences. And finally, lastly, they have to have adequate management arrangements in place, so they need to have adequate funding in place to maintain their property, and also they need to be competent to run a property, to manage the property. With an HMO license application, it's not like planning, so there's no public consultation, and in fact residents actually don't get an opportunity to make any representations, but they would do that on the planning side. When we do issue the licence, then we will always issue it with licence conditions, and that will be, we'll set a maximum number of persons that can stay in the property. That will depend on the number of, bathrooms, toilets, kitchens, and it will also depend on the size of the rooms and the number of the rooms. We'll also ensure that there's gas and electrical certificates up to date. We'll ensure that there'll be a condition that the landlord must maintain their property to a good standard, and not just internally but also outside, gardens, external areas, so they will have gardens and fences, that type of thing. Another condition will be in relation to having adequate refuse facilities, and also that they need to comply with the council's recycling requirements. So if the tenants fail to put their bins out properly, or they don't recycle properly, it's actually the landlord's responsibility. So it'd be the landlord in breach of the licence conditions. And also we have conditions around tenancy management, that they issue proper tenancy agreements and comply with all the legal requirements in setting up tenancies. When we issue the licence also, we will inspect the HMO, and we'll carry out at least one inspection and licensing compliant inspection for the term of that licence. But sometimes we might do more than one inspection. For instance, if we get complaints, we might do more inspections as a result of complaints from residents. We can revoke a licence, but generally it would be quite a serious matter. We can only revoke a licence where there's repeated and very serious breaches of licence conditions. So it can't be just a case of, they've broken a condition. There's no zero tolerance policy. You can't have that. The legislation says that you can only revoke it in very serious circumstances. So we do have a stepped approach. We'd give a landlord a warning, and if they complied, then we wouldn't take it further. But then if they would kept breaking the licence conditions again and again, then we might consider revoking it. Again, like I said earlier, it's an offence not to licence your property, and if landlords don't licence and we find out that they're licensed, again, they could be prosecuted, or we can issue civil penalty fines as an alternative to prosecution. We have to prove that the property is an HMO, which isn't always straightforward, because the tenants have to be unrelated, and sometimes trying to prove that's not always straightforward. And often we have to do unannounced inspections to check who's living there, and we often do that with the police, and sometimes we might, in extreme circumstances, have to get warrants to enter the property. If we go and find that it is unlicensed, we usually give a landlord a chance to apply for the license, so it's not automatically prosecute or fined. We'll give them a chance, and if they comply, we won't penalise them for the unlicensed period. Enforcement is more for persistent offenders where they don't respond to warnings, or where the conditions are so bad that there's been a serious risk of harm. We also, as I say, we also deal with tenants' complaints. So if tenants may be renting a flat, a single family, where the landlord hasn't carried out some repairs, or maybe defective boiler, Damp and mould, at this time of year we're getting a lot of damp and mould complaints. So again, we will take an informal approach first of all, tell the landlord, give them a chance to do the work. If they don't cooperate, we've got powers to serve enforcement notices. So if hazards are, really serious, we can serve prohibition. We can actually prohibit certain dwellings if the conditions are so serious and works aren't feasible. We can prohibit properties, but mostly would serve an improvement notice requiring works to be carried out. It's actually for single dwellings like this, it's not an offence to have defects. It's only an offence when we serve the notice and they don't comply with the notice. So it is an offence for not complying with the notice. Again, we can prosecute, we can issue a civil penalty fine, and if the landlord still doesn't comply, the council can actually step in and do the work and arrange for those works to be carried out and make charges on the property and the landlord. That's it, really. If anybody's got any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Councillors, any questions for Pat Gilmore? Aftab.
Thank you very much, Pat. I think very informative. In terms of the HMOs, they are a long-term situation, and you are very well positioned to sort of regulate them. But there's one situation in terms of where we got this short letting kind of things coming up, both from Airbnb and Virbo basically, and they also, I think it is just the nature is more or less the same. There are people who are occupying it and then going away, and they do leave a lot of kind of, I would say, as you said, they're not putting the rubbish properly and stuff like that, and you do find that. And I'm just wondering how we are positioned to deal with that alongside, because it's very much related to your area. Sorry, question a little bit from outside, initial discussion, but yeah.
Airbnbs actually come under planning enforcement. So I think you said you had someone from plan enforcement here. It actually doesn't come under HMO, like they're not HMOs. We haven't really got the powers under the Housing Act to do anything with them. But planning enforcement, I think, can deal, and obviously later, I think some of my other colleagues will be able to, they're coming along later, if there are issues with rubbish or noise and whatever, I think some of my colleagues will be able to cover that. They will have the powers, the more appropriate powers to deal with that.
Thanks. Yes, John Schratter.
What's your interaction like with some of the housing associations? Because we do get quite a lot of tenants who are complaining that repairs aren't being done, and the classic damp or broken windows, leaking roofs that take a long time to get fixed. And I know that everyone, the general feeling is housing associations are the good guys, but sometimes that tends not to be the case.
Yeah, we have got, our powers we can use against housing associations, but housing association tenants do have their own internal complaints procedure. So if they're not happy, they can complain. They have a stage 1, stage 2 complaint, and then they can also, if they're not happy with that, they can go. There's a housing ombudsman. And we can get involved, and we have got involved, and we've actually served notices on housing associations, because they're not always. I'm not saying they're rogue landlords, but sometimes they just don't get it right. But and I think the tenants themselves will get a better result going through the housing ombudsman, because the housing ombudsman has probably greater powers than ourselves, and they can actually issue the tenants, they can give them compensation, award compensation, which we can't. You know, so quite often they're probably better to go down that route than through us. But we have stepped in and tried to sort of push them on a little bit.
Thank you. Councillor Chowdhury.
Sorry, thanks. Just a question about tenants and protecting them. So, for example, if a tenant made a complaint about a landlord and you're enforcing against the landlord, how do you protect the tenant and their rights?
Well, we work very closely then with, there's other parts of the council, the My Independence team, the HIPS team, because they can, are you saying a landlord tries to evict them because they've complained to us? Yeah, well, so we would, you know, there's a team with the My Independence team. They will, if someone's served with a Section 21 notice, they can step in to try and prevent that person being evicted. You know, they will try their best. They will offer support, and it's not just our My Independence team. There's quite a lot of other agencies out there that we can signpost them to. So although we ourselves, you know, and obviously we will speak to the landlord too and say, you know, you haven't got, because there are rules now about where if we've served a notice, a landlord actually can't serve a Section 21 notice for 6 months once we've served the notice. So that does offer a bit of automatic protection to tenants. So we will sort of mediate a bit for the tenant, but we don't have any powers to sort of, you know, it's more of an advisory role, and it's not our expertise. The My Independence team would have greater expertise there, and people like Shelter, Citizens Advice Bureau, or there are other private voluntary people that we can send them to, and also just we work quite closely with some team, like we work closely with a voluntary group called Justice for Tenants, and quite often, especially in HMOs, we refer tenants to Justice for Tenants, because they can actually, if a landlord breaches certain rules, they can go for rent repayment orders and things like that, and they will act on behalf of the tenant. So although we personally don't have the expertise and don't actually get involved in that side of work, we can signpost tenants and help and give them advice.
Thank you. Thank you. And any questions? Right. So we've got Barbara, and then we've got Dominic at the back there. Got Mike for Barbara or Dominic? Someone? Barbara first, then Dominic.
Thank you. Yes, that was interesting. I'd be interested in some stats and some hard data. So, what's the duration of a license? How many HMOs are there in Hounslow? How many HMOs are there in our wards? What are the trends? Are there more of them? Are there fewer of them? How many inspections have been done? Again, what's the trend, more or less? How often are there issues? What are the problems?
Slowly, Barbara.
No. And I don't expect an answer now. But if we could,
someone's taking notes.
Okay, so yeah. So if this data is available somewhere, I think it would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I can.
So you know how many issues there have been. What are the main problems with these HMOs? You know, the split percentage-wise of the different types of problems. How many fines have been issued? Again, are they increasing or decreasing? How much is a fine? What's the range? All of this sort of information I'd certainly be interested in, because I know nothing about it, and I'd be interested to see what it's like, particularly in our ward.
Yeah, that information could be... Yeah, quite a bit of information can be pulled out, and by ward, yeah, we can report by ward.
Let's do that. I mean, we'll have a chat, or we'll talk to Jenny between now and the next meeting. But we can still try and get this out sooner rather than later, at least for the 3 wards, and share it with councillors, share it with groups as well. Thank you. Dominic.
Thank you, Chair. Dominic West, St John's Residents Association. Very informative presentation, like Barbara, first time we've heard this sort of thing. Very, very informative, and good to hear the work that the team carries out. My question is related to this, and it's really the interaction between you and the planning department. I appreciate there are two different sets of legislation, but we reported to cut a long story short, we reported a property that had been sold at auction, 2-bedroom purpose-built maisonette, you probably know it, in Lismore Close, which was converted to an HMO illegally without planning permission. The planners refused planning permission, quite rightly so, but they didn't take enforcement action. Don't know why they didn't take enforcement action. Meanwhile, the property was let for £800 a month for a room. I've just this minute seen they've taken it off the market and put it back on the market with the same landlord for £850 a month. There you go. It says 1 Hounslow over there. I'd like to know if 1 Hounslow is actually happening, and if the planning department and you guys are working together, and what's going to happen with this particular property. Thank you.
Yeah, well, housing enforcement actually sits within the planning and buildings department. So yeah, we will work closely together. I've got good, we work very close together. I know the colleagues there, as I say, we're within the same, I'm in the planning and buildings. Lismore, it does ring a bell actually. And possibly, I don't know, maybe they haven't taken planning enforcement because there could be appeals or something going on. I'd have to try. I can't answer that straight off, but again, I can look into that and see what's going on there. And I presume they've applied for a license, but licensing and planning, like I did say, are separate. We will consider planning when we are issuing the license. For instance, if they don't have the proper planning permission, although we can't refuse the license, we might give them a shorter term license with the proviso that they sort out their planning. And then if they don't do that in the shorter term, then we could consider refusing it. But we couldn't refuse it straight away on planning grounds, because that would be, they could, any refusals, they've got a right of appeal to property tribunal, and if we were to just refuse a license on the grounds of planning permission, I can say now that we wouldn't succeed. But if we take that stepped approach by saying, right, we're not refusing you, but we're putting you on warning, sort your planning out, we'll give you a year's license, get all that sorted. If they haven't done that, then I would feel more confident in refusing them.
All right, thank you. Briefly, we've got a lot of people on the agenda, a lot of things on the agenda. Christine.
Oops. Private property empty, Twickenham Road. The enforcement team did a brilliant job sending 2 chaps. Took them 3 days to clear all the rubbish from the garden. You probably remember it.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Brilliant. But of course, that was months ago, and the undergrowth is now growing back. The holes in the roof are getting larger, causing more problems to the adjoining property. There was mention that the council would consider CPO. How long will you be considering CPO for?
Okay.
Be brief.
Yeah, I
please,
think in this bit, I don't know, and I'll try and find out more. But I think in this case, we might have found an owner, and there might be things moving on that. So if someone's, it could well. I think if they get a new legal owner, and then they will. We've got guarantee that they will sort of renovate it or sell it or whatever. But if we're doing a CPO, we have to go through cabinet. We have to. We're talking probably year, 2 years to CPO a property.
Thank you very much. Housing.enforcement at hounslow.gov.uk.
Yes, yes.
We'll put that on the minutes.
Yeah.
And you can pass anything that you know about that address on Fillingham Road. What number is it? We'll see. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Council Stroud Turtle caseworker. So, yeah, you can take it. That's good. Thank you very much. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you. I'll just leave these here.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Right, next one. How the council addresses antisocial behaviour via community safety. Who's speaking on that? Zana, yeah. Thank you. Whistle stop if you like. We can.
Do you want to tell me how long you want me to speak? Okay.
I'm gonna ration it now, if that's all right. Let me time you for 7 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah, let me know at 3.
I'll let you know at 3. All right.
Okay.
Well, I'll give you 5 minutes then. Yeah. Is that all right?
You're a tough crowd to please, eh? Okay, so my name's Fazana Wangde, and I am the operational manager for the Safe Communities team. And at the councillor's request, we'll do this as fast as possible. But you know, if there's any questions, there'll be contact details at the end. What we're going to do, we're going to cover what the team does, then we're going to talk a little bit about how we do it, and then we're going to end on talking about just a few examples of where there's been some good work achieved. Click. We're stuck on the title page. Again? It's frozen, okay. Anyway, so the next slide is going to talk about what our team consists of, and there's 2 key groups of people. So we've got Safer Communities coordinators, and we've also got Safer Communities workers. Yeah. So there's that diagram. So we've got Safer Communities coordinators and Safer Communities workers, and they're supporting 18 to 25-year-olds specifically. This is how the whole of the borough is split. Now, for our area forum this evening, we have got it in 3 different patches. So Matt Duncan at the bottom covers Hounslow South. We've got Kim Carradis, who's here this evening, and she covers Osterley and Spring Grove. And Sheena Maker will be starting on Monday, and she covers Isleworth. So it's just a bit of a thing, because obviously we've got 4 patches as opposed to 7 area, how the 7 area forums are set up. So Safe Communities Coordinator, what we can do, so we do like to do a lot of engagement with local communities, local residents, through pop-ups and workshops, trying to explain to them about, you know, the importance of hearing how residents see problems and what their solutions are from a community-led perspective. We have to try and coordinate sometimes multi-agencies approaches to help improve safety, because as you're aware, sometimes some solutions are not as simple as just calling the police to resolve them. Sometimes it takes more time, different agencies. We can assist with liaising with statutory services and landlords, private or social. Sometimes that means we've got to do a bit of a digging up, or maybe speaking with another agency to try and find that out. We like to coordinate efforts so that, you know, we've not got different people working on the same problem in 3 different ways. We're trying to pool it together so that we've got a coordinated approach. So what else we do? Oh, next slide. Yeah. Okay. So the next slide then elaborates a little bit more about that. So for example, I'm being told, I'm going to put this down. Okay, I'm done. Right. So the next slide is just going to go on to a little bit more. So, for example, we can't report on behalf of residents directly. What we do, we would work with residents. If there are certain things that are coming to our notice, we have a duty of care to report, we would do that. But we do encourage residents to report directly, whatever that avenue might be relevant. We're bound by very strict data protection, so we can't divulge any information, but it doesn't mean that we're not working on the case if we can't tell you all the details. We want to try and ensure that if things require enforcement action, we would work with the appropriate teams to make sure that happens, because we don't do things like fines, etc. We also try to support residents, to submit their feedback about changes that they might want to see in public spaces, because often that is where people might not feel safe. Next slide, please. So in my team, we've got some Safer Communities workers, and they are supporting 18 to 25-year-olds. We know this group of adults can sometimes be really involved in some of the antisocial behavior concerns that we're seeing. So our work is to try and give them one-to-one support, try and engage, try and get them away from that behavior and try and engage into some positive stuff. Could I have the next slide, please? Now, the foundation of our work is based on an area-based approach. And the reason for it, if we go back to the map, we all know if you live in Hounslow, because I live in Hounslow, one side of the borough is very different from the other side of the borough. And we know even from sometimes ward to ward, what works in one place is not going to work in another place. And what we want to be focused on is trying to address the needs with that area-based approach in mind. So that might be taking all these people that you see on one side, trying to get them together and trying to get things like emergency actions, maybe it might be improved youth interventions. In another location, it might be actually we've got to get support referrals for certain antisocial behavior or incidents to come on. Next slide, please. Moving into slow motion. Okay, I think I've got an example after this. So we've got an example. We did some really useful work on the Ivy Bridge estate, and some of the concerns that were surfacing, there was concerns about young people getting groomed and targeted by gangs. So we did some workshops with staff of the Bridge Link and with parents on the estate in partnership with the primary school and also with the Residents Association to talk to them about seeing the signs and thinking about what these things... Really changed the tone, hasn't it? Okay, yeah, so we did that. And then we've got another example. So, for example, we know we had a case a few months ago with the Osterley Park Hotel because there were some concerns about some disturbances there. And we had to pull a couple of agencies together to address. I think one of the incidents was fireworks going off, and it wasn't necessarily at the hotel, but it was with guests who were attending at the hotel. And we work together with different agencies to think about fire safety and the disturbance of the peace, because it was really late at night in that case. There is another slide on there, as you can see right now, referring to contact details of your Safe Communities coordinator. That would be relevant. They attend things like ward panels as well. And as you can see, we're here at every area forum with normally a table to have a conversation with people if you'd like. So, was that on time?
Doesn't matter. I didn't stop you, and yeah, that was seven minutes. Yeah, good. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Yeah,
I reckon it would have been less, you know that.
Sorry?
It might have been less, actually.
It may have been, but, we're wasting time here now, aren't we? But, we're using up time. No, we're using up time. Look, councillors, you probably see Fazana, and you see your community safety officers on a regular basis communicate with them. Unless there's anything really pressing that you've got to ask, can we throw it over to members of the audience, please? Right, let's say John O'Brien, lady there, and I've forgotten your name, Barbara. So John O'Brien, Barbara, Paul, and we might come back to you, Barbara S.
I did submit a written question in advance. I don't know if it got through, but it's about fireworks. We've had a month of fireworks now. Nobody complains about the little flashy ones, but the enormous great explosions, in my view, are serious antisocial behaviour that needs to be addressed, and I'd like to know what the council and the police think about this. Do you have a policy? Do you have any urgency about dealing with it? Because it is a cause of distress for many people.
Thank you, John. May I just add to that? I know people mentioned dogs and the pets being affected by them, but I know some people who have discussed it with me, and they've got care responsibilities with people with dementia, for example, and that screws up an evening for the carers, if you like, because people are upset by it. But then that's an example.
I think
as
it's a
well.
specific thing, so we're quite happy to take that down. I'm pretty sure that I haven't seen a specific policy around that, but I think this is probably a dialogue that needs to be had.
May I just add, in terms of the Osterley Park Hotel, residents did raise it with ward councillors, and we went to the police, and the police didn't want to do anything about it really, and we did chase it with the police and pursue it, but they said unless we see it, we can't do anything about it. But we did have evidence. We did have residents did have video evidence as well. I just want to bring that up because we're in fireworks season at the moment, and I'm just maybe it's something that we can do with licensing and check who's selling fireworks and how efficiently they're selling them as well. We've got a few permanent shops in the ward now, in the borough now, some on the boundary as well. But that's just to add to John's.
Okay, thank you.
Pick up on that. Who was after John? Barbara. No, you do need a microphone because otherwise we won't pick up the questions. You see.
All I want to know, I chair our residents association, and I would like to be able to give them the information about who they call if they see antisocial behavior around us. So I know that slide wasn't there, but is there a way that it...
I can get you some information. It's not a problem.
Thank you. Because I think other people might want it. I'm sorry. I'm
Where
very
are you?
hard of
Where
hearing.
are you?
Heron's Place.
Thank you. Thank you. Who's next? Paul, over there. Go on next. Paul. That's all right. That's all right. You got one behind you, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much for a very thorough presentation. My name is Paul. I'm in Osterley and Spring Grove, resident in Osterley and Spring Grove ward. I wanted to ask a more general point. Obviously, you do fantastic work, but you cited 18 to 25, and I work in West Yorkshire, a lot of mentoring work with children there, and I would say, and I'm sure you'll concur with this, that for grooming into gangs, specifically county lines as well, often that starts well before the age of 18. Yeah. So is that picked up by a different department for those that start younger? What is the process for that? Thank you.
There is a lot of work that had been going on. So the two key agencies in the council would be the Youth Offending Services and also Adolescent Services. And I know, so for example, they have adolescent community outreach workers who are out kind of looking at those who are more visible on the street to try and engage them where they are. Because the trick, so some of the drawbacks of services is you've got to get them to be ready to come to you, so we've tried to remedy that. And I know our head of service is really interested in how we can try and prevent them to enter into criminality, etc. So that's one of our commitments. You'll see it in our Safe Community Strategy.
Thanks. I had Barbara before you. The lady over there hasn't spoken. That's okay.
Thanks. It's probably lower level antisocial behaviour, and it's probably not limited to your age range, but just wondered, is there any enforcement or any liaison with the schools about chewing gum? Because there's lots of it all over sort of London Road by the shops and lots of it all over the place. Just wonder if that's something that gets picked up on at all.
I think that might be the question for the next presentation. But I agree with you on that point, no. Was that any other questions?
Sorry, one more question. Barbara or Christine, you make your mind, fight it out.
just wanted, so I'm Barbara Striak from Osterley and Spring Grove Ward, so I was the one who was banging my head against a brick wall over the fireworks outside the Osterley Park Hotel. And I didn't really know who to contact, so we were talking to our ward councillors, we were talking to the police, nobody was updating us on what was happening. I now know who to contact, because hopefully then, you know, you can act on our behalf and contact all the various agencies. Because, I mean, at the moment it's quiet with the Osterley Park Hotel, but it will probably pick up again at some point.
No, I understand. So each of the areas have a monthly meeting where we have the police and various other agencies all talking together. And often, so incidents like that, we will filter through that to have those conversations to say, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing, and then try and get that together. But yeah, please be in touch. Thank you.
Look, much appreciated. So, go on then, Christine, sorry. Briefly, yeah.
You mentioned partnership meetings, but you didn't specify ward improvement officers. The issue that I've had, which I think started off with your group, but ended up with the ward improvement officers, is the alleyway at 262 Twickenham Road. And it's now 6 months and still no resolution of moving the thousands of discarded cans there and improving that. And I'm sure safety would be improved, but I'm just really interested to know if you do liaise with the ward improvement officers.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
We would. If I can take that away and then I can just check as to what we can do. I've got your email, so okay.
Is it anybody's casework? Any Isleworth Ward casework? All right. Maybe get back to.
Christine, could you just tell me that address again, please? Sorry? The address of the alleyway. What was it?
It runs from 262
Twickenham Road. Okay, great. Thanks. The problem. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Right, thanks very much. We're churning through them now. I've got Laurie and Kelly from Environmental Enforcement, or what do we call you? Regulatory enforcement these days? I don't remember. Exactly, it changes. There you go. But you know what you know what you're doing, so maybe you can tell us how briefly you work on noise monitoring and environmental enforcement.
I just wanted to pick up on the fireworks comment as well. So there's quite a lot of information on the council's website about fireworks, what we can and can't enforce when it comes to fireworks, the legal parameters surrounding what's allowed. Believe it or not, fireworks are permitted until 1 a.m. on Chinese New Year, New Year's Eve, Diwali and the 5th of November. Anything that's sort of described that would be sort of breach of the peace, which is what I've heard, that is a police matter, and I would push the police on that. They are, they are responsible for enforcing against the breach of police. To pick up what Councillor Lukey said, so our trading standards team do a lot of work around sort of monitoring licensing, and you have to have an appropriate license to sell fireworks. And if there are particular premises that you're aware of, let us know, let my colleagues know, and we can check those out. With the chewing gum comment as well, yes, there is a lot of work that's done. Colleague Ben over there would do a lot of sort of education engagement about all sorts of litter issues as well. There's a national chewing gum action group as well that do bits and pieces, believe it or not. I think largely sponsored by Wrigley's, which is a bit interesting. One of the issues is that, well, not an issue, but we do a lot of enforcement, but we don't enforce to anyone under the age of 18. So obviously when it comes to sort of school offenders, which we know a lot of the people dropping litter, we wouldn't issue them on the spot fixed penalties. The law allows us to do it younger than that, but our policy is that we don't enforce for under 18. So we'd very much be a sort of education and engagement piece, if that covers that. I've got my presentation on my phone because I wrote it a few weeks ago and I'm not going to remember what it says. Yeah? Is it
Go for it, yeah.
There we go. So,
all right. You all right with 7 minutes?
Yeah, I'll try and speed through.
Okay, thank you.
So I manage the what's called the neighbourhood enforcement team. For the 3 wards here, we've got a team of 8 officers. managed by Indapal Thind, who might be familiar to you. So those officers cover your entire area, and each officer has a specific ward. Our remit is very, very varied, and I'll go on to that a little bit. We do a lot of reactive stuff, so we react to any complaints and service requests that are made to the team, but we'd also expect officers to do an element of proactive patrolling across housing estates, patrolling across their wards and picking up issues that are there that haven't been reported. We are uniformed. We should be a uniformed enforcement presence across the borough, so residents know that we're there, approachable, you know, we're there to deal with issues that residents have. We're a 7-day-a-week service. We work extended hours, so essentially weekdays we start at 7 a.m. and finish at 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday nights we work until 2 a.m. and we provide the council's out-of-hours noise team service on Friday and Saturday nights from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. And then at weekends we start slightly later at 1 o'clock to pick up the issues with sort of out-of-hours construction noise and things like that. We've got a range of specialist services and officers, so I've got environmental health officers, I've got officers that have very specific qualifications, which I'll go on to a little bit later. But for example, planning, which was spoken about earlier, we are consulted on all planning applications from an acoustic perspective. Any licensing consultations, we're consulted on them as well. We've got officers that have got very, very technical noise qualifications. Noise is a very, very complicated issue that I certainly don't understand. I've got officers who've got, you know, degrees and things like that. We're called the enforcement team, which is not a name I particularly like because enforcement is one aspect of what we do. We do a lot of education, a lot of engagement. Our aim is to bring around compliance, you know, and people will become compliant through a range. Some people just need the information. Some people need a little bit more encouragement, sort of a different carrot and stick. So enforcement is part of what we do, but a lot of that is trying to basically get compliance. So some of the areas that we work, noise, actually in terms of the number of requests and complaints coming into our team, noise is by far the biggest. So for my service, we get sort of about 600-700 service requests per month. That's across the whole borough, and if you're interested in the data, I can absolutely pull this out for a ward basis, you know, if that would be of interest. When it comes to noise, about 200 or 300 of those are noise complaints, new noise complaints every month. I think waste and fly tipping is always the sort of headline grammar because it's very visible, but we get more than twice the amount of noise complaints. So we would be required to investigate them. As I said, we consult on planning applications. We've got the designated noise team service on Friday and Saturday nights. We deal with other statutory nuisances, so like odour, dust, bonfires, on domestic and commercial premises. We deal with a lot of fly tipping waste issues, commercial waste issues, but only on private land. Anything on council land is the responsibility of Hounslow Highways, so we would enforce those issues on private land and housing land. That involves us essentially contacting the landowner, asking them nicely to clear their land. Sometimes they do, sometimes they need a bit more encouragement in the form of fines, prosecutions. We had a prosecution earlier this year in Cranford actually, where there was a fly tipper who emptied 2 truckloads and he got £4,000 fine and 250 hours community service. We deal with a yes, exactly, hopefully, clearing up fly tipping. Commercial waste issues, particularly around the back of flats and the back of business premises, we get a lot of complaints about that. We've got the authority to serve notice on businesses to find out how they're disposing of their waste. Have they got a legal contract? If they haven't, that's a potential fine or prosecution. We deal with abandoned vehicles on housing and private land. We conduct antisocial behaviour patrols across our Hounslow housing estates only, which is one of the reasons why we have extended hours, because obviously lots of these issues happen at weekends and in extended working hours. We work very closely with our colleagues in housing and our tenants in housing for them to, you know, to say where are the issues, when are they occurring, there's groups hanging around at this time, or I've seen someone, you know, potentially drug users in bin sheds, etc. Licensing is a big area for us as well. As I said, any applications that are submitted come to my service to consult on, so any premise that wants to put a temporary event in has to come to us. We can make representations, you know, based on noise complaints and stuff that we've had. Anything like pavement licenses, anything like street trading licenses, markets. we get consulted. Events is a big one, and festivals, not so much probably in this part of the borough, but certainly towards the east, we consult on all of that. We monitor the noise. Something that's been quite problematic this year, we enforce traveller encampments on council-owned land, so it's our responsibility to go out, engage with those on site, and we have to undertake welfare checks, you know, encourage them to move on, and if they don't, there's legal parameters that we can utilise. As many of you probably will know, there is a Thames plant sewage works in the borough. We conduct weekly inspections on that. And we currently have a 24/7 response service to deal with any complaints, odour complaints surrounding that. Drainage issues, that's another one that we deal with. We work very closely with Thames Water, so we've had complaints about misconnections, drainage misconnections. We've got authority to ask the landowner, the planner, whatever it might be, to change the drainage because of odour, pollution. Exhumations is another random one that we have to do. We're required to provide a public health presence. We get probably about 1 or 2 a year. Section 61s, they would be things like noisy out of hours work, so road works, construction works, things like that, when there's repairs needed to be done on the M4, etc. Those organisations have to contact us to get permission to conduct those noisy works, and we have to issue them a licence. I also manage the LA support, which also known as Kingdom, so you might have seen our officers out and about issuing on the spot fines, so we manage that. 1 minute, okay, I think I'm going to fly through. So what we do deal with, as I said, noise, light, smoke, things like loud music, parties, smoke, bonfires, building, DIY work at unreasonable times, that being the key word, things like constant dog barking, building alarms. We've actually got the power of entry to go onto commercial and domestic premises. As I said, fly tipping and waste issues we deal with, so things like alleyways, privately owned land, stuff in front gardens. We work very closely with Pat's team, where we think there might be, you know, build up pest issues, etc., etc. Things we can't deal with, just wanted to highlight this. So we get a lot is noise from just ordinary domestic activity, ordinary domestic noise it's called. There is case law that we can't take action. So people talking, people vacuuming, people cooking, we get a lot of complaints. There is case law that we can't take action against that, you know. Noisy work from construction within permitted hours. We saw this go through the roof during COVID because everyone starts working from home and starts being disturbed by it. If it's within permitted hours, we can't do anything about it. Noise from the streets, noise on the highway, noise from fireworks generally is not considered a statutory nuisance. And then another one I wanted to highlight is waste on land where there's no clear ownership. So a lot of these issues, and I know you've got lots of colleagues from enforcement here, there isn't always a straightforward answer. Sometimes there may not be a landowner. Sometimes there isn't a clear responsibility. You might have 10 properties that have got a right of way for an alleyway, but they've got no legal responsibility to clear it. So some of these cases, it might look like we're not doing anything, but actually we're trying to find a solution between the colleagues that are here and planning, etc. And that might be coming to our councillors and saying, do you have a pot of money to do a one-off clearance? Can we install a gate here? Can we use community paybacks, do community clear-ups, etc.? So I think, oh no, sorry, one more. Just contact details. Would ask everyone, please, 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 where you can, to report things online. That e-form is fully integrated into my service, so officers can pick it up real time. As I said, we're out of hour service, and our customer call centre is only Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So if you want stuff picked up by the team at the weekends, the best thing is to report it online, because we can then pick it up. Obviously, you know, you're more than welcome to contact the call centre, of course. And for our housing tenants, there's enhanced sort of reporting. There's a dedicated number and email address for those colleagues as well. There we go. Quick stop.
Very good. Thank you. Is it all right if we do it the same as last time, unless there's any burning questions from councillors? Good. Over to you. Hands up. Any questions? Anybody new apart from John and Dominic? But go on then.
When I report a fly tip through Fix My Street, it goes to Hounslow Highways, who will then tell me it's not on land that they are responsible for. They close the issue and send it to Hounslow Customer Services. What happens next?
It should come to my team. You can online. It's very, very tricky, and I completely appreciate that people aren't going to know which bit Hounslow Highways are responsible for and which bit we aren't. Most of the time, it will be Hounslow Highways because most of the fly tipping is happening on public-owned land, so that's why they receive most of the complaints. In that instance, if it's not for them, it would get logged for my team, and someone should be in contact. You can report directly on the website for private land if you know it's private land or it's a front garden or something. There is a separate reporting mechanism to report issues on private land, but I appreciate it's a very complex issue, and we try to make it as straightforward for residents, but sometimes we're not even sure. We have to check out land registry details, etc. But it's directed through Fix My Street because most of the issues are on the public highway.
Why don't you just pick up the Fix My Street report? Why close it down and then fill out a form?
I don't manage Hounslow Highway, so I can't answer that question, I'm afraid.
John, we've got Hounslow Highways here. You can ask Mr. Gillett. No, you're right. Yeah, we report loads too as councillors. Councillor Shaheen, Salman, you're going to come back on that one?
Yeah, I was just going to say, John, I mean, I completely take your point insofar as it can be a little bit labyrinthine navigating the council, especially when we have private contractors working on certain services. So there is a bit of is this my responsibility, is this my responsibility? If you're in doubt, you can just come to ward councillors, we can put it through as casework. The person who is responsible, the department that is responsible will be found, and the fly tip will then be dealt with.
Just on that point as well, when it comes to private land, it could take months, sometimes even years to clear it. So I appreciate it's very frustrating to think, oh, this is bouncing around. But if I serve a notice on someone, minimum I'm going to give them is 28 days. So that it's not necessarily going to be a short-term solution as well. So I appreciate it can be quite frustrating to think, well, that's wasted 2 or 3 days. But actually for us, it's quite a long-term issue anyway. On private land, that is.
Thank you, Lauren. Dominic.
Thank you. Hounslow Highways do an excellent pick-up service for fly tipping, and we've got nothing but praise for them for that. The problem we've got is that not enough action is taken against the perpetrators. I mean, I've seen waste with a name and address on it. Clearly someone living above a flat or somewhere has bought a television or something, whatever, and name and address is right on there. And again, there's the chance to actually knock on their door and do something about it, and no one seems to want to know about that. We had an issue where there was a van that actually dumped commercial waste in the street. We had the registration number, we had video footage. I raised it with the ward improvement officer at a police meeting that was attended by the sergeant. Councillor Lukey remembers it very well, and nothing ever happened. And the poor neighbour said, well, what's the point? Why do I bother to take a video message if no one's going to do anything about it? Prima facie case, you could have nicked the bloke, and you could have probably stopped him going to Spaceway with his van.
If I could come back on that a couple of points.
Yeah,
so fly tipping is a criminal offence, and therefore carries the same burden of proof that any criminal offence does. So seeing something with a name and address, it wouldn't be convicted. We have to have evidence of that offence being committed. Absolutely, I take your point. We knock on doors, and we do. And I'm happy to provide the statistics of the number of fines that my team issue on a weekly basis using DVLA details and CCTV, because we do it, and we do it week in, week out. Sometimes there may be reasons why that's not met our legal team's requirements, or it's not been possible to prosecute, but I guarantee we do, and I'd be happy to share those details. And again, I can appreciate that. I think, well, clearly that person fly tipped, that wouldn't get convicted. It's a criminal offence, and we have to have absolute evidence. For example, I've seen CCTV where a van's gone in full of waste, and we've seen it come back out of waste. That's not sufficient evidence. We haven't captured the offence taking place. Believe me, I share your frustration, but that's the legal parameters that we're working with. But we do issue a lot of fines using those footage, and if there's something that hasn't been picked up by colleagues in Special Waste or Hounslow Highways, please let councillors know, and we'll query that.
Just to say that we do, I do know, from a particular spot in my ward, in our ward, Osterley Spring Grove ward, we have taken a load of fines from people fly tipping because there's evidence of it happening through the CCTV cameras that are there, private and the councils. It varies. I'm not going to talk to people from from Osterley, from the Wyke estate today about that, what happened there when the police didn't do anything, because they prefer to go and chase, chase with their sirens on, even though they saw who did it. That was me.
Thank you. It's, Fran, I live in the Isleworth ward, but if I have a Royal Mail delivery, I have to go to, used to be Brentford, now it's in Hounslow. I think it's on Matisse Road, so it's sort of Kingsley Academy, that area. And I don't know if you've ever looked at that area, but the Royal Mail area itself is piled up with rubbish. And then on the other side of the street, absolutely loads of rubbish. And I'm pretty sure it's private land because they find, there's lots of signs up saying this is private land, and then they find people stopping to pick up their parcels. But it's just particularly unpleasant there. And I don't know if it's something you've previously looked at, but it is pretty unpleasant there.
Yeah.
If Ian Roll was on the case, it's definitely going to happen. The other thing I was going to say about fly tipping is the fines are increasing to £1,000 per fly tipping offence. It's currently £400, but central government increased them this year to £1,000. So work is, collectively being done. Fly tipping is, a blight, and we're doing our best to try and tackle it.
It's all right now. Okay, all right. Yeah, grasses are welcome. Yeah. Right. Anybody else? Christine. Yeah, wait for a mic, please. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you. It's a comment. To report fly tipping on private land comes right at the very bottom of the page where you can report to Hounslow Highways. And I've raised this before. Most people don't scroll down that far. It really should be more obvious on that report it page.
I can pick that up. Yeah, thank you.
Barbara.
I would like to say a thank you. In Wood Lane, about a month on our WhatsApp group, somebody said, oh, there's a bonfire in the back of somebody's garden and the smoke blowing in. It was on a particularly windy day. And I just gave them the link to the website. They phoned, somebody came down. I think they warned the house owner they had to put the fire out, and if they did it again, that they would be fined. So that I was delighted. I was surprised and delighted. So that worked really well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Lorraine. Thanks again for coming. Yeah. Who we got now? Tom Sarger's been sitting there quite patiently, almost unobtrusive, come to talk to us about parking enforcement, but particularly if you're looking at particularly the parking enforcement that affects our residents on the streets where they live, I would say. But welcome to the area forum, man.
I've got a green light. I was getting confused. Oh, there we go. So yeah, parking enforcement, although it's a bit of a misnomer, parking enforcement, because probably half of the enforcement we do is moving traffic, bus lanes, so we're not just going to focus on parking enforcement. So yeah, why do we enforce? I think there's probably a common misconception around a lot of parking enforcement. that it's basically a money spinner and generates revenue for the council. There's actually a huge range of reasons why we do enforcement. It's about managing safe and free movement of vehicles. It's about maximising parking space. And that's not just for people who drive, it's for residents, businesses, visitors, pedestrians. It's about improving road safety, improving the local environment, whether that's freeing up space or whether it's the actual air that we breathe. It's about improving the movement and accessibility of public transport, so especially bus lanes and other public transport. And it's about meeting the needs of people with disabilities, so whether that's people who have a disabled badge, keeping their blue badge spaces free, or as you can see, they have the option to park on yellow lines as well. So yeah, types of enforcement. There's a wide range of enforcement that we use. Probably just worth clarifying as well that parking enforcement is actually, it's an outsourced service. So I work for parking operations, so I work for the council directly, but the actual enforcement officers that you see out on the street or the people who manage the CCTV, it's actually a private company contracted by the council. So that happened about 9 years ago. I'll come on to that in a little bit later as well. But yeah, these are the various methods of enforcement. So probably the most common one, if you think about parking enforcement, is civil enforcement officers, which more commonly known as traffic wardens back a while ago. So they're the uniformed officers you'll see out on the street. You also have CEOs who deploy on mopeds and in cars. We have removal trucks as well, so for the more serious contraventions, if a vehicle receives a PCN and doesn't move, then we have the option to either remove it to a vehicle pound or to relocate it to another suitable location. We have CCTV vehicles. They can enforce quite a wide range of contraventions, from school keep clears. We can also use them as spotter vehicles as well, where essentially they have ANPR cameras, which allow them to essentially check vehicle permits and basically other exemptions and see if the vehicle is allowed to park there. In terms of CCTV, we have bus lanes, which obviously everyone knows what a bus lane is. We've got CCTV parking. So that's things like school keep clears. We're actually very limited in the enforcement we can carry out by CCTV for parking, something called the deregulation bill. So it used to be we could enforce things like loading bays, double yellow lines with CCTV, but that's no longer an option, unfortunately. And moving traffic, we'll come on to some examples later, but things like school streets, resident access restrictions, low traffic neighbourhoods, they actually form probably about half of the tickets, the penalty charge notices that we issue now are issued in relation to moving traffic. So yeah, I won't go through all the various contraventions that we can issue, because they literally run from 1 to 99, 1 being parking on a yellow line, up to 99 parking on a pedestrian crossing. But these are probably some of the ones, the more serious ones: parking on double yellow lines, parking in disabled bays, and a classic example of footway parking. I mean, yeah, I think a picture speaks 1,000 words there. So yeah, these are a couple of the parking contraventions that we still can enforce. So school keep clears and bus stops. And yeah, moving traffic and bus lane contraventions. So we've got yellow box junctions. It's one of the local spots around there up near the hospital. As you can see, people trying to leave the hospital and the traffic trying to flow along, so that's why they put a yellow box junction in there. It's absolute chaos. Bus lanes. Picture in the top right, there is a school street, so limited restrictions, so basically to keep the roads outside schools safe for children and other pedestrians at very key hours, and just down the bottom there, you've got banned turns. So yeah, I won't go through all the legislation, but essentially we're allowed to issue PCNs where the officer, whether that's a CCTV officer or an officer on the street, believes a contravention has occurred. There may well be instances where they believe a contravention has occurred and that turns out not to be the case. There's quite a lot of exemptions from parking restrictions. It could be loading, or it could be the dropping off a passenger. So it's not always the case that, I'm not going to say the CEOs don't always get it right, but sometimes there may be tickets issued and the circumstances behind that they're not aware of. So yeah, we've got all these various bits of legislation which allow us to issue PCNs. Things that we can't enforce for are obstructive parking, that's a police matter, and inconsiderate parking. A lot of the complaints that we get and I don't want to say stupid parking, but there's examples of stupid parking which unfortunately we can't take action against. In terms of PCNs themselves, they vary depending on the seriousness of the contravention, and the fine, the charge that is levied is then dependent on the seriousness of the contravention. If you do receive a PCN, or if someone you know gets a PCN and they don't believe it's been issued correctly, there is a representations and appeals process. So you can either appeal to the council in the first instance, or if you're not happy with the resolution that the council gives you, you can go to an independent adjudicator as well. So there's a very transparent system available. They're decriminalised, you don't get taken to court. So essentially the independent adjudicator is the equivalent of your day in court if you think you've been issued a PCN incorrectly. A little bit, I mentioned it's an outsourced service. Currently, actually tonight is the last night that Serco are carrying out enforcement. So Serco have been our service provider for about 9 years now. They've made the decision to leave the contract early. They're essentially leaving the parking sphere and moving on, well, I was going to say moving on to other things. They're a huge company. The parking is only a tiny piece of what they do. Our new provider from tomorrow morning is going to be NSL. You may also have heard them as Marston's. NSL are a huge player in the parking industry. Really excited to be working with them, and hopefully as residents you'll see improvements over the coming months as NSL show us what they can do essentially. So yes, so literally we're doing a transition, so that's why I've been on the computer. We're actually transferring as we speak from one provider to another. Just a few contact details. We'll circulate them especially because things are changing. So the old Serco email addresses are moving and we're moving across to NSL. I've also put the parking enforcement line number on there. We have a dedicated parking enforcement team. There's an office number and also an out-of-hours office, an out-of-hours number, which you can get through to the civil enforcement officers at other times as well. So yeah, a very whistle-stop presentation there. But I'm sure there'll be questions. I know parking is a contentious issue. So yeah, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Tom. Barbara. Thank you, Christopher.
I raised this earlier with the table over there, but on Richmond Road, the bit that comes up to South Street, there are these lovely signs that say residents parking are. And that's all they say. And we use it for guest parking when our guest spaces are full. But I can't persuade them that it is safe to park there because nothing explains what it's for. And I have complained, and none of it has changed. And I really think the parking signs ought to be clearer.
Yeah, it's a fair point. So the R zone is the rugby zone. Oh, you know what it is?
I know what it is. But how am I supposed to know if I'm a visitor from somewhere else that there's a rugby match on that day and I can't park there? I mean, it's just daft.
Yeah. So in terms of the rugby zone, I'm probably telling you stuff you already know, but when you come into the zone, if there's a match on, there's basically entry boards which say when it's restricted, so it'll tell you when the next match is on.
Will you send me pictures of them?
No,
will
definitely.
you show me where they are?
Yeah. So basically, there'll be all entry points into the zone. There'll be these. So you have the controlled parking zone boards, but then these ones are special because they actually show when the next event is on. But yeah, if you take your contact details afterwards, I can give you a map, kind of showing you where they are.
Thank you, because it really is unhelpful.
Yeah.
Just on that, one of my sisters lives near Wembley Stadium. And they've just got fold-up signs that when there isn't a match going on, nobody knows that it's a controlled area. But they open up these signs to say that it's a controlled area when there's an event at Wembley. But we don't. If we've got R on it all the time, and that could possibly confuse. Who would could we get Twickenham Stadium to help resolve that?
Yeah, no, we did used to have those flip-down signs around Brentford Stadium, and I think they bring their own problems with them. But it's definitely something I can take away. Like I said, I'm the enforcement arm of the parking team, but I can take that back to the parking management team.
Maybe it's something that ward councillors get involved in rather than myself. Yeah.
No, definitely, yeah. It's an interesting point. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah.
It's just worth mentioning it's a by borough arrangement, our zone, with Richmond Council and Hounslow Council, so it's a co-design exercise between the two. It's actually quite hard to regulate a sign specifically for time on a special event day. So that's why there's the entry plates, as Tom mentioned, but it's quite a complex process to change it, hence they're set up as they are, but the entry signs obviously need to be very prominent, so that's a key part of your...
Yeah, you can deal with it outside. Yeah, thank you, Paul. Any other questions on Christine?
Just on that last question, in my road, at the top of the road, it tells you the dates when rugby matches are on. And in the road, it says parking R. We like it because most people see it and they think, oh, I can't park in that road. So I just go on that. But on parking enforcement, I've always found we've had very quick results when ringing up the office and getting someone to come when a car's parked on a pavement. They've been pretty good on coming down. And
that's really good to hear. Yeah, like I said, yeah, hopefully we'll see that continue and if not improve with NSL coming in. So yeah, we're also looking at different ways for people, because like I said, we've got the phone number at the moment. We're looking at making it so things like Fix My Street, or having an app as well that people can, as an addition to being able to ring up to report things as well. So yeah, really good to hear.
But the issue that seems to be getting worse is at Bush Corner, the new green school for boys. I mean, there are umpteen stop off there in the morning, dropping their children there. I don't think there are any of the zigzag lines along there yet, and I think it needs looking at, particularly in relation to their travel plan. Do people report that kind of issue to parking at Hounslow? I mean, I know someone who did report it the other day. They reported it to Hounslow Highways, but of course it's not for them.
We were told it was going to start working on the 6th of November, mate. Yeah. All right. Don't give the secrets away there, Tom. But, right, well.
No, it's really frustrating, yes. It's like I said, the operators are ready to enforce it, so yeah, in the future, the will is there, but not the way.
All right, okay, thank you very much. Go on, thank you. Last one then, Dominic.
Idling vehicle offences, any chance of enforcing those? And I live in a school street. We've got a school street, we wanted a school street. The problem we've now got is that cars are doing 3-point turns between the cameras. That is obstructing the carriageway. It's causing mayhem, as you can imagine. I appreciate that's not something you can probably deal with, but I think it may need a revisit, or perhaps the camera may need to be relocated.
Use your...
Is it working now? Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, so I think kind of dangerous driving around schools is a real issue. And also when we put restrictions in, it then pushes people into the surrounding roads. So there's a lot of work in terms of reviewing those school streets at the moment. And we do carry out joint operations with the police as well. So, but obviously their resources are very tied up. But I'll speak to, we've got a school, the STARS scheme, I think it's called, in terms of things that happen around schools, so we'll take that one away. Idling, yes, something we're very keen to enforce. Unfortunately, the Traffic Management Act, the legislation we normally use, doesn't allow us to enforce it at the moment because there's basically not approved signage. However, we are looking at different, and this isn't just us, this is all boroughs. We're looking at alternative methods. We're looking at potentially private companies to enforce it. I know we've talked to, I don't know if Lauren's still here, we've looked at potentially using Kingdom or other enforcement agencies who can issue FPNs. So there is a working group on it at the moment, so hopefully we'll have some positive news on that in the coming months.
All right, thanks. I thought the reason was both Bexley and Bromley are delaying it, but that's nothing unusual for that part of the world. Danny, did you have your hand up? Yeah, cheers.
As you mentioned, you're changing Serco to another agency. This is not directly regarding enforcement, but the change of agency and parking permits. At the moment, the only way to get a parking permit is online. There's no way to phone, so if somebody doesn't have access or hasn't got the ability to get online, they cannot get a parking permit or visitor's permit. Is the new organization going to have a telephone number to do so, like you have on enforcement for parking?
There's no immediate plans in terms of when we're changing providers, but there's a council-wide thing called the customer experience. So that's looking across all the council departments, focusing on the ones that have the biggest interactions with customers, and I think parking are probably top 3. We're going through that process at the moment. It's like a design and build phase. So it's looking at what customers want, how we can improve the services, and that's definitely, I'm not going to make any promises here, but we're definitely looking at what people want, how people want it to be delivered. I think Alex is going to mention the parking strategy as well. There's consultations around lots of different areas of parking. So yeah, definitely raise it with your ward councillors. We're looking at how we can accommodate as many different people. So yes.
The council's answer is always get somebody who can do it for you. As more people live alone, it's much more difficult to achieve.
Yeah, but like I said, we're definitely reviewing it. So, I mean, this is the right forum to raise it and via your councillor. So, yeah.
It's raised a lot in my ward anyway, and we find the good librarians at Osterley do it for people online though, but if there's other ways that people can do it independently.
Yep, and that's other service.
Yeah, we would welcome that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for coming down and exposing yourself this way. Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Look, we've also got highways enforcement. That's the last one on enforcement. We've got Mr. Satbir Gill here, he's probably been at the council one way or another now with Hounslow Highways, man and boy, for about, I don't know, 90 years, I think. But no, it sounds a bit like some of the people I know. But it's the quick whistle stop and then answer questions there, please, Satbir. Thank you very much, man.
Responsible for the maintenance of the network. So it's very important we carry out enforcement to keep the network integrity. There are no obstructions on the highway, and there is no congestion on the highway. So I will go through, how we manages that. Yeah. So we have highway. My network stewards, my inspectors, they carry out their routine safety inspections, ad hoc inspections. And part of that inspections, they look at non-fixed obstructions. So that is not good for a footway if you have obstructions. There are unauthorized shop displays. So, and then third-party vegetation, so we have vegetation coming out from parks, coming out from schools, coming out from residents. So we need to enforce it. So to make sure the footpath is not obstructed. So it's an urban area. We have illegal crossovers, and that causes a lot of damage to the network. The network integrity is affected by that. So we need to make sure we enforce. We make sure they stop driving over the footway, and we are doing a lot of work on our residential crossover policy to enforce that they have only the opening, what is required to drive the car from the public highway to the hard standing. So then we have graffiti, which is offensive, non-offensive, we enforce that. Then there are some illegal activities on the network, which we do enforce. There are illegal alterations, then public right-of-way, there are obstructions to public right-of-way, there are abandoned vehicles to which the highway enforcement is carried out. So it's very, and then with utilities, we have 8,000 openings of utility companies on our network. So gas, water, electricity, cable companies, they do our openings, 8,000 openings. So we have to make sure we enforce them. So when we issue permits to them, we put some conditions to the permits which they need to abide. So if they don't abide to the conditions, then we issue them fixed penalty notices. And then if they, so we do give them a time duration that you have to work from X to Y 5 days. And if they exceed that, then we give them the Section 74 notice, which is the hour stay on the network. So we do enforce them. We need to make sure that they reinstate in line with the specification, and they don't overstay and they don't cause any congestion on the network. So, and then we also monitor developers working on the highway. So when they have their hoarding licenses, when they have their scaffolding licenses, when they carry out work on the highway, we do take care that the network integrity is not affected. They are not reducing the width of the footway by putting illegal hoardings on the network, and we issue them FPNs from time to time to make sure that they abide to the conditions what is provided to them. So thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Satbir Gill. Right, any questions for Satbir? What he did omit is report this stuff via Fix My Street.
Yes.
Okay, so all of this is easily reportable through Fix My Street, and it's a great way to follow stuff up. I find it very efficient myself. Right, any questions? Satbir, you got off lightly, mate. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right, let's. A quick one. Verbal update on Cycleway 9 through the area forum area. It's only that little bit of Cycleway 9. The bit that's proposed is between Isleworth Station and Thornbury Road, but it is continuing up. It's going to continue up into Hounslow at some point. I've got two gentlemen here. Got Paul Robinson and Peter Wickett from LBH, who are working on the other bits of Cycleway 9. Soon to come this way. If you just give us a quick update on where it's going, please, Paul, and if there are any questions from people.
Testing. Right, we're in. Hi, I'm Paul Robinson. I'm the team lead for traffic, highways and network management at Hounslow Council. One of the many schemes we're delivering is the Cycleway 9 scheme. For those of you who aren't so familiar with the background of this, it's a scheme to segregate cyclists from general traffic in Olympia, all the way through Hammersmith. We've gone through Chiswick High Road, goes down to where Brentford Football Club is, Kew Bridge. We're currently working by Waterman's Park. And the current phase is going up to the old Morrison's supermarket. So that's why you'll see all the roadworks and all the construction there at the moment. So before we get to the area that Councillor Lukey was just talking about, there's a few areas to tackle. So I just wanted to give you some idea about general timescales on construction before we just talk about much earlier phase planning, because it's not something which is in the immediate term for these wards going London Road, sort of west of Brentford High Street. So it's a continuous network, so to achieve continuity, to keep going west from where we currently are, there's a revisiting of Chiswick High Road. That's outstanding. That was an experimental scheme. It needs to be upgraded to a permanent scheme. It's recently made permanent. From there, there's a lot of work to do. It's scheduled to complete probably in June or July, I think, Peter, where we're currently working up to Morrison's. Then you've got what we know as Brentford High Street with all the shops and where Brentford Lock is, and obviously then we're going westbound from there. So early 2022, there was a consultation for sort of London Road connecting Brentford High Street to Hounslow Town Centre, as mentioned before. We don't have an exact date, but there's a round 2 consultation, and we're expecting that will be early in 2024, next year. I'm guessing we've asked for an update, probably February, March maybe. So when we get some more clarity on that, our comms team at LBH, as well as TfL, I noticed there's some information from Eleanor Thomas in the minutes of the last area forum. Those 2 communication teams need to come together to find out with your local councils how best to spread the message about the consultation, get the best possible feedback from that. For anything I've just mentioned, if those that are able to access the internet, if you just put Cycleway 9 and TfL into Google, you'll quickly find the consultation history, the results of the first round of the consultation, and things that have been built and the current status. So it really is a case of notifying local businesses, residents, councillors about the next phase of consultation through this area, and then obviously having your say. I noted the first consultation, which was before I joined Hounslow Council in this round. I was at Hounslow Council a decade ago, delivering the Hounslow Town Centre scheme. But that ran for about a 6-week period on what is quite a large scheme. So we'll take advice about sort of the length of consultation, X, Y, and Z. I just want to clarify to the room the council's role in this. So Transport for London are the designer of Cycleway 9, and Hounslow Council, which my colleague here, Peter, manages it on our behalf, is the professional services arm of delivering the design. It's 100% funded in terms of construction and also the staffing costs from the council to deliver this scheme. It's worth mentioning, obviously the purpose of this is to put a segregated cycleway in, but it also does bring in lots of public realm benefits, backdoor maintenance on footway construction, drainage upgrades and things like that. So there's a large package of works. That's why the scale of construction is, as you may see when you head towards Kew Bridge and Brentford up that way. But that's the update for now. We just need to get some more information, then filter that through the various forums for you.
Thank you, Paul. Go on then, quick one.
Okay, how is it, I mean, you probably can't do anything about this, but the east-west roads, 316, Brentford High Street, and the A4 all have major construction on them. And I have to go regularly to Hammersmith for carrying responsibilities, and it's just a nightmare. How can all these things happen at the same time? And they're long. It's not as if it's for 2 weeks or a month.
Yeah, okay, so it's a good question. The technical answer is that it sounds like you've had journey time issues, so there's an issue there. So in the case of Cycleway 9 and the A316, where we're working on Cycleway 9 now, that is Borough Road. Okay, where the A316 is, that's Transport for London Road Network. However, that doesn't really matter for the purposes of coordination on the road network, because Transport for London are the network managers in terms of licensing both of them. I actually provided some details to Jenny earlier on. It was quite late, so you received that a couple of hours ago. But it's actually, there's a network assurance team and there's a specific web page, but there is a telephone number as well and an email address. And the best thing is to note that, and then it goes to the Network Assurance Department at Transport for London. And then from that, they can look at bus passenger journey time data, things like that. If there's a negative impact on the network, then it's for them to coordinate their licensing. We do have local licensing that Satbeer helps me out with, but it's actually, there's an extra level of governance on these major strategic roads and TLRN, Transport for London roads. So if there are network issues, report it. And then there's a lot of intelligent data about passenger journey times in cars with ways and different methods and bus passenger journey times. And they need to look at that so there isn't a negative impact going north to south, west to east, etc. But it's a Transport for London governance process, not a local borough governance process. Clearly we can support that, but we're answerable to them to actually have a licence to work on the public highway, even on borough roads like Cycleway 9.
All right, thanks. Yeah.
And it would seem to me that just looking at a map,
Yeah, I've noticed the Manor Drive section of A316, isn't there? There's major roundabout works, and clearly these can network to get through traffic jams. But yeah, it's worth raising with them.
Yeah, thank you. Paul, we're starting to run late now.
Thank you, Chair. I will be quick. Thank you, Paul. It's a very quick one. It's a more general point as well. I understand now there's a hierarchy protocol in terms of traffic management that drivers have to take more responsibility than cyclists, who are more responsible than pedestrians at junctions. And my big concern, well, there are two types of bus cycle lane passenger interchange. There's the Chiswick Road type along London Road, as you talk about, where the bus stops are on islands now, and there is the A4 type. I understand much of this is probably TfL, where you have a cycle lane between the road and the pedestrian area. They are both incredibly, some disorientating at night, incredibly dangerous for pedestrians. Bearing in mind that pedestrians should have greater protection than cyclists, how is that being addressed and managed? Thank you.
Yeah, so that comes under the area of sort of bus stop bypasses, and they're also called subs, where there's cycle tracks which run through the bus platforms. So, you know, the design is a TfL-led design, and there is actually a current review of those types of measures with Transport for London, and there's actually been a commission set up, and the council are waiting for a final report in the next month or two, feeding back on that. We have a few examples on Cycleway 9, and that's cited in the interim report. So the best thing to do is to email traffic@hounslow.gov.uk, which is the traffic inbox, and then we can give an update on the final report, which is due. So we should receive that in a month or two. It's a pan-London review on bus stop borders and bus stop bypasses, which is the area you just mentioned.
Thank you. Is it all right if we move on to the next one? I really apologise to Alexandra Crush here, who's come to give us an update on the Lime bikes, on the e-bikes trial in the borough. Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, very brief. Sorry, I mean, I know you've been waiting here for a long time. I should have called you in earlier, actually.
Yeah, thank you. So I do have a few slides, but I'm happy to do it without, if that's quicker. It's about 3 slides with a bit of data in it as well. Great, thank you. So just quickly to recap on the delivery programme. So many of you will recall that Lime had a presence in the borough already before we launched this scheme, but the users had to end their rides wherever they liked, so there was no control. So what we sought to do through this scheme was introduce a bit more control by setting up some dedicated bays in which users could park the bikes at the end of their ride. So we rolled it out in 3 core phases, starting in the east of the borough and then working our way westwards, with this area launched mid-July. We're still making some minor amendments across the borough, so you'll see a few further tweaks throughout November and December. So we've started to get some data through from the scheme. So we've set out some of the key sort of headline figures here. In terms of usage, we saw a peak of about 56,000 trips a month in September. But then as we head into the autumn-winter period, we're starting to see that decrease. So in October, 53,000 trips starting in the borough. In terms of parking compliance, we've seen a huge improvement there. So we started out at 78.5% on launch, but then that's gradually risen to 95% through close working with Lime. But there's still an element of non-compliance. So anyone who doesn't park in the bays does receive a fine, and Lime are currently issuing about 500 of those per week. I'm pleased to say that the hacking issue has now been addressed, which was causing quite a few issues with bikes being abandoned outside of the bays, because there was no comeback for those users who were doing that. In terms of response time, so where bikes are abandoned, Lime are responding within the time set out in the MOU, so that's under 2 hours for urgent tasks, and then we're also seeing them respond fairly quickly on non-urgent tasks as well. Just to recap, to remind you that abandoned bikes can be reported to support at Lime, or there's also a new function under Fix My Street. In terms of next steps, so we said we'd sort of start the trial from full borough-wide rollout, which was mid-September, so that will take us through to March. In the meantime, we've got a parking and curbside strategy consultation out, which is closing on the 10th of December, and I'll talk a bit about that later. And that concludes a section on e-bikes that covers the general principles of the scheme, the spacing between the bays and so on. If you've got comments on particular bay locations, I'd encourage you to email traffic@hounslow.gov.uk. We are monitoring that closely and making amendments as necessary. And then there'll be a further consultation specifically on e-bikes towards the end of the trial, which will be sort of spring 2024. So that will include a full evaluation of all the Lime data, plus the responses received through those above channels. And then we'll be bringing any final recommendations to Cabinet in spring 2024, with that report available on the website if you're interested. So yeah, that's key.
Much appreciated. Look, I expect there's a few people who want to talk about Lime bikes. Do we need to? If we know where, do we really need to? Okay, and I'll just take Dominic then, because he keeps collaring me on this stuff. And that's it. Briefly, Dom.
Thank you. Just to say, I do take issue with some of the statistics that you've shown tonight from my personal experience. One particular location, which is in Spring Grove Ward, which Councillor Lukey knows about, outside the old NatWest Bank. Every day last week, I reported a number of illegally parked Lime bikes. At one point, we had 15. I reported these on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your colleagues in traffic were extremely helpful. They asked to be copied in on the correspondence. Emma, Hounslow Highways are now changing their website, where they're sending you a response email saying that they will get to Lime within an hour. So clearly there is a wish within the organisation to step up the enforcement, because things are not good. But we're hearing some good stories about, you know, usage and 95% compliance. I don't get that. I do not. It's not what we're seeing on the ground. So I think you do need to show a balanced report which explains what's really happening. And on the issue of hacking the bike, it hasn't stopped hacking the bike. You pick up the bike by the rear wheel, even if it's got the additional stand. The guy who puts them away showed me last week, and it hasn't been resolved. I'm sorry. I wish it was. So please carry on the good work.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. I will raise that with Lime when I next see them. And if there's any specific issues that you want to raise, please do keep on emailing traffic, and they will raise it with me as well, so we can in turn raise that and escalate it with Lime. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Alex. Thanks very much. There you go. Right. Should we whistle stop through the open forum on questions from the public? Some people have submitted questions already. Are there any questions that have not been submitted that people want to raise now? We'll pick them up later. If we can answer them now, we will, but otherwise we'll get back to you. No? Good. Right, let's go through some questions here. I've got, do you want to read out the question, Heather, or do you want me to read it out? Go on then, yeah. You do need the mic. You do need the mic because it gets recorded. No, use the mic, please. Yeah. So I know you're a free spirit.
Two things at once. I just thank you, Chair. Is it on? Yeah. And also thank you for the food. This is my first area forum, and if it's like this, I'll definitely be back. I will be brief, and my question is, what is Hounslow Council's response to the Thames Water proposal to extract water from the Thames at Teddington Weir and replace it with recycled water from Mogden sewage works via a 4.5-kilometre tunnel, and to send it then back to through the tunnel to Teddington Weir before it goes into the Thames Lee Tunnel, which is a very big, large tunnel that takes it right across London to the Lee Valley in East London, which they will do, or they would do if it goes ahead, when there's a drought. Their planning time scale is about 10 years that from planning to construction. So any disruption because of this, whether we agree with the actual proposal, the disruption from the construction will be considerable. And the most immediate effect in this area will be the construction of a very deep shaft, one of 6, which will be used as part of the construction for the actual tunnel between Mogden and Teddington. And the first one is proposed. They have 4 routes for this, their preferred route, and 2 of the others all involve using at half half of the car park at Ivy Bridge Trading Park, which will do nothing for the local environment, the shops, the people that use that, or indeed anybody living and working in and around the Ivy Bridge estate. The current consultation ends on the 11th of December. Richmond Council have met and unanimously agreed to oppose the proposal, and they had a public meeting which they ran and they held on Monday this week, to which Thames Water were invited and were able to respond to questions from Richmond residents, because the other part of the proposal would also to dig one of these shafts, which is part of the construction of the tunnel, would be in Moormead Park in St Margaret's, which some of you will know. This is not unconnected, and I will be very brief. This construction and the proposal and the plan, their preferred plan, is not at all unconnected with their current application to Ofwat to increase our water bills by 40% from April 2025. That's putting it up by £14.55. They have not paid to their shareholders, to their credit, any dividends for the last 7 years, largely because they don't have anything to pay their shareholders with. They are in huge debt. They currently have a debt of 13.8 billion. I will be very brief, but this is not separate from the main argument about their proposal. They owe 13.8 billion, which we are paying through our water rates at over 11% interest. They have paid out, since the water company was privatised, 7.2 billion to their shareholders. So I don't think we need to shed any tears for them. I will finish just quickly by reading you the consultation response from one of my neighbours,
which completely sums up my view. He said to the Thames Water as part of the consultation, I do not believe the Thames Water plans make sense from a water management perspective, and they do enormous environmental damage to this area. Thames Water is a failed company which has an unblemished record of maximising profits at the expense of our water quality. So my question is, what is Hounslow's response?
I've got a response to you here from Tim Arnold, who's one of our emergency planning, emergency response planners. Right. And it says, Thames Water are currently consulting to the public and businesses on the Teddington abstraction project. Project is to extract drinking water from Teddington during periods of drought as a resilience measure. It relies on replacing extracted water with treated water from Mogden, and there is therefore a pipeline to be constructed between Mogden and Teddington. Shafts will need to be constructed across the route, which will result in construction equipment, materials and traffic for up to 6 months at each shaft site. For Hounslow, these impacts will be at the following sites. At Mogden, where constructions will impact a site of importance for nature conservation. At Ivy Bridge Retail Park, as described. The council is responding to the consultation, is currently outlining significant concerns to the traffic impacts of all proposed sites, including traffic volumes and impacts on bus and school routes, parking capacity at Ivy Bridge Estate and effects on queuing traffic on Twickenham Road, availability of accessible parking spaces, separate entrance requirements for construction traffic from public traffic. Significant concerns around appropriate future local consultation, particularly with residents surrounding the Ivy Bridge Estate, and requesting local engagement with affected residents from Thames Water. That's what we have concerns about. Understanding more of the impact of works on the site of importance for nature conservation at Mogden. We would encourage residents to feed their comments directly to Thames Water. Google Teddington Abstraction Project Consultation. The deadline is Monday the 11th of December. We are also, as Council, Tim Arnold, we are also collating residents' comments for inclusion in our organisational feedback, and would encourage residents to do so via our engagement portal, which will be advertised on social media this week, or to email flooding@hounslow.gov.uk by Wednesday the 6th of December. Further notes provided from Tim yesterday. The engagement hub link is now live at talk.hounslow.gov.uk/Thames-construction. Some paper copies of the consultation are available, which can be returned to Isleworth Library by Wednesday the 6th of December, if that's helpful to any attendees at the forum who would rather review by paper. So the council is responding, maybe with a short deadline, but you know, would recommend that. And if we can, someone can get onto communications, and maybe it'll be us, where's Christopher? Would you be able to do that tomorrow with comms and get that get that out widely, get them to get it out widely, if possible. Yeah, it's very important that they do, but particularly in this area, in the local media, social media sites, to the ward councils in this area, because it straddles towards Mogden, and we'll put it out too. And Councillor Shaheen, who liaises with Thames Water at various times, wants to speak.
Thank you, Chair. As does Councillor Stroud-Turp as well, liaise with Thames Water on the Mogden Liaison Committee. But beyond that, as Ward Councillor, I have written into the consultation. I have opposed the plans on the basis that I believe it would be detrimental to the environment, detrimental to the water quality, and detrimental to the wildlife in the Thames. So on a purely environmental basis, I've already written in to oppose the plans. I've also heard from a number of residents, a relatively small number of residents, concerned about the impact of the construction on their own properties in Isleworth Ward. And as a result, Councillor Stroud-Turp and I have requested a meeting with Thames Water for them to explain themselves and let us know exactly what what impact this is going to have on residents, and we said that we'd feed back residents' concerns to them in Thames Water directly in that meeting as well. We've also been in touch with residents in Richmond who have been, I would say they've probably been more actively consulted, I think, the residents in Richmond than the residents in Hounslow have. Many people in Hounslow don't seem to be switched on as you, Heather, and don't seem to have realised what's going on. And I think it might be that Thames Water have been more actively engaged with residents in Richmond, where, of course, you know, it is concerning Teddington, but it affects Isleworth too. And you know, as a result of that, we have been liaising with them. I have personally opposed it. Hounslow Council clearly, officially has its own concerns on many levels as well.
Yeah, just exactly. Same experience as Salman. It's not getting quite the traction in Hounslow that it has in Richmond. I've only had 3 people write to me about it or speak to me about it, and one of them's you, Heather. So there's only 2 others apart from you. Now that may be, and I feel it's because Thames Water's consultation is they're doing their best to do a consultation without actually letting anyone know there's a consultation happening, is my reading of it. And we've been speaking to colleagues in Twickenham as well, and they're putting a similar line across to Richmond Council, engaging with their residents, but they've got the same experience as us, that the consultation has been more for show than for substance, is the way I would classify it.
Thank you, John. You haven't got a question on this. I know you might, but can we put? Thank you. I'm just thinking. Jenny's got a cab booked for 10 o'clock as well. Right. Let's. What's the next one? What's the next question? Mike.
Sorry. Can I just ask about Councillor Shaheen's point about Richmond being more proactive? And I just wondered, I mean, for example, this local area forum, we could have invited someone from Thames Water and put it on the agenda?
We could have, but would they have come? Did they come to the? They
didn't show up in person. I think they pulled out of there and do it virtually for fear of their.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So look,
I mean, is that a point of learning for Hounslow Council, that they could be more proactive in this process?
It is, and it would be, and we will happily pick up suggestions. And if any residents want to put anything our way, my way, as chair of this forum, please do. Yeah.
There has been nothing about it in Hounslow Matters,
right,
or in the weekly emails that we get. So
okay,
we really, tomorrow, it needs to go out.
I agree, and Christopher is going to include this in his, yeah, because
but not just social media, also the email media for us older people.
Exactly, Hounslow Matters, exactly, the Hounslow Matters Digest. All right, thank you, and I apologise for, thank you, Heather, for raising this, and I apologise for not having the savvy to do it here myself when planning for the agenda. Next one, right, we've covered the question from Alga about CCTV, and we've done the fireworks. The next one is, for the last few years, we have been promised an upgrade to the LBH planning portal. Another year draws to a close, and there is no sign of us being asked to test drive a prototype, ! Is 2024 going to be the same, or is there some chance that we might see a new system before the end of 2024? Look, I haven't got... oh, there we go. Oh, sorry. More and more people are using smartphones to open emails, but are unable to open attachments in Word. Planning notifications are sent out with attachments in Word, which often cannot be opened on a smartphone. We have been asking for the last few years for attachments to be in PDF format, but we keep hearing that it isn't possible. Why can't these attachments be in PDF format? The planning portal is a mess. The status of some planning applications is out of date, with latest documents not uploaded, so it is difficult to have an accurate picture of the latest status of some planning applications. Thank you. I haven't got a reply for you on that. Yeah, but we'll get that. We'll get that. I don't know. I'm not the. Yeah. We'll pass that. We'll refer that to Christopher. If you make a note to refer that to the head of planning and director of planning and buildings. If you can forward this email and say we'd like a response to pass on to residents. We've got another question. I know some of this is repeat. Christine Dywell asks, would it not be more appropriate to provide a telephone number to enable those without access to the internet or for other reasons to obtain paper copies of consultations? That is, rather than as stated on Hounslow Matters, Autumn 2023, page 17, not just online, not everyone has access to the internet, and some people may need alternative versions. If you would like a printed copy of a consultation or an accessible alternative such as like Braille, large type, or easy read formats, please email consult@hounslow.gov.uk. Well, that's a bit of a circle there. Why is it now necessary for residents why is it now necessary for residents to register before exercising their democratic right to respond to consultations, and why does registration include compulsory registration for social media? NB, please do not repeat the previous absurd response given that this is used for official and social sites, example, Government Gateway for information supplied to HMRC for tax or pensions. A survey of 6 other nearby local authority websites indicates none request registration for responses to consultation. Again, a holding reply was sent on the 29th of yesterday, and again, I'm not going to go through it right now or take any supplementaries on it. We'll wait for that response, and I know, and you did write to me, and I do think it's a little bit. I'm not saying totally absurd, but we seem to be going round in circles on this. Right, Dominic West, again, received a couple of days ago. How many requests has the council received for a space in the cycle hangar borough-wide? How many in Hounslow South, Isleworth and Osterley and Spring Grove? What is the policy on dealing with these requests? I know you've got queries in on this. I think maybe I've asked questions on Osterley and Spring Grove on your behalf. Again, we haven't got a response on this. Can we get something to you, please? Thank you. Right, what's the other one? Barbara.
And it's actually a suggestion.
Third one, right, open forum. Councillor Guy Lambert has been attending the borough-based partnership, patient and public engagement meetings chaired by Mark Jarvis. He has noted that the information available there is not widely known amongst councillors, and asked how the communications on health issues can be made more widely available to councillors. We do get some as councillors, but again, I've passed contact details of appropriate officers to Jenny Hazel here. But again, after the meeting, we will liaise with. We always have follow-up meetings, so next week we'll have a debrief on this meeting. So we'll pick up on that.
Just conscious of the time to approve suspended orders.
I'm conscious of the time, and standing orders. What is that? I know what they are, but...
What's the advice time?
2 hours, all right.
Just got to agree.
Should we extend this for a couple of... I don't like extending it too long, but should we extend it to 5 to 10? That'll give you a chance to get your cab, is that all right? Or what? Is that all right? Oh, it's our venue. We'll sort it out. We'll sort it out. Right. Next. Thank you. Right. I've got one for. I've got 3 from Jonathan. From Jonathan Swain here. What are the? Yeah. Are you happy to stay until 10 o'clock, residents? Good. Yes, it looks like it's okay. Usually a chair decides, and if residents want to stay or go, it's up to them. That's how it works in standing orders. thank you anyway. Thanks for inquiring. Right, from Jonathan, what are the plans for the installation of new electric charging points for cars, particularly the Spring Grove area? I'm led to believe from Jitin Panchal, who's a lead officer on this at the council, that the council is about to initiate a plan for installation 2,000 charging points between 2023 and 2026, with 1,000 charging points to be installed by summer 2024 this winter. I haven't got an answer on this yet, John. Is Jonathan still here? He's gone. All right. Okay. We'll pick this up with Jonathan later. I know where he lives. What was the reason for the pavement works at the junction of Grove Road and College Road? That was a very wide junction, very wide mouth to that, because there used to be a roundabout there back in the day on College Road. It's been narrowed. It's been narrowed from about 24 metres to about 9 metres, so it slows the traffic down with the traffic hump. I will respond. We will respond to Jonathan on that. 3. What is the latest situation regarding the Duke of Northumberland's plans for the allotments near Syon Park? I don't know, but I think this guy does.
Well, I mean, as some of you will know, as some of you have been working in lockstep with us on the campaign to save Park Road allotments. It's been quite the saga so far. If I were to compare it to Star Wars, I'd say it started with A New Hope, when Hounslow Council's Planning Committee unanimously rejected the plans to bulldoze Park Road allotments and turn it into flats. Then the Empire struck back. The Duke of Northumberland appealed to the Planning Inspectorate. A campaign by us, including a representation by the council, successfully overturned the Duke's request to hold that inquiry behind closed doors by written representation. We fought and won the right for a full public inquiry, which was heard over the summer, culminating on September the 11th. We are now awaiting the result of that, which could be any day now. We suspect it will be in the next couple of weeks, next 2 to 3 weeks, could even be as soon as tomorrow. We just don't know, but it is going to be very, very soon. We are expecting the result very soon. I firmly believe that we are moving into Return of the Jedi, in which the Ewoks will win. I think we've got a great case, and I think we're going to win it.
I think you're Princess Leia.
Thank you, Obi-Wan.
Exactly. That's who I am. Right, thank you. Open forum done. Ward updates and action plans. For information, they're printed. You're welcome to that. And see, this shows you what we're up to. We're expecting some updates. We'll have this printed again for the next meeting. Right. Current council consultations. Verbal updates. Reimagining our streets. That's was it, Alex? Again, sorry. You can present with your coat on. Everybody else seems cold as well.
Okay, I'm going to skip over some of these. So basically, we're trying to get as many responses as possible to our current consultation on parking and curbside strategies. This is part of our ambitious plans for a healthier, greener and safer Hounslow. So we're looking to reimagine our streets for the benefit of everyone. We want to know how our parking and curbside spaces are designed and managed, and basically balancing the needs of those using different modes of travel. And that includes building resilience to poor air quality and climate change. So what is the curbside? It's basically the street, the space that sits on the road next to the pavement. So it's where you'd currently find parked cars or bikes, taxi bays, bus stops and the like. And it's one of Hounslow's biggest public spaces, and lots of potential there. So why is the curbside important? The management of that space affects everyone who spends time there. It's, as I've said, currently mostly occupied by car parking. But we're conscious that around a third of residents don't own a car, and 60% of journeys are made by walking, cycling or public transport. So we're proposing to incorporate a wider range of different uses to the curbside. And again, that will help to create safer, healthier, more livable and multifunctional streets. So in the little balloons to the right, you can see some of the different uses that we're proposing to introduce that we'd like to seek your views on. So that ranges from car clubs, more space for deliveries and servicing, cycle hangars, e-bikes, cargo bike hire, taxis, parklets, outdoor dining, seating, greening, more trees, planting. So what about parking? So this covers the parking strategy element. We require a progressive car parking strategy to manage and enhance existing provision. So the parking strategy outlines proposals for all types of on-street parking, as well as our council-managed car parks. And the aim is to improve provision for those who need to drive, whilst not negatively impacting those who choose to travel by other modes. So again, in the balloons, it shows some of the key themes covered within the parking strategy. So improve safety and security, particularly within car parks, improve wayfinding and signage. We know there's a lot more we can do in that respect. Looking at integrating more different facilities into the car parks, such as anything from cycle parking, delivery lockers, facilities for cyclists. We know we've got more to do on improving accessibility of parking, so incorporating more priority bays for people with disabilities, even parent and toddler bays. Improved information on our websites on everything parking related. We're also looking to do a review of pricing and payment options, thinking about and revisiting our emissions banding system at the moment and thinking about how we can refine that further. More electric vehicle charging points. As you know, we're delivering over 2,000 points over the next coming few years. So looking at integrating those into car parks and on street. And then a wider review of processes and priorities. But obviously keen to hear your suggestions as well. So to have your say, please do respond to the consultation. There's a link at the bottom of the slide there. Very keen to hear your say on how those spaces can be used and managed. The consultation closes on the 10th of December, so not long now to comment. The survey only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to respond, and there's also a map-based system as well where you can add suggestions onto a map for different facilities. In terms of next steps, so after the consultation closes, we'll be analysing everyone's responses and then looking to take that for Cabinet approval in the spring. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Are there any questions to this? You can look at the consultation phase and get back. Thank you.
3 words to remember. Pavements are for pedestrians. Can we incorporate that in all our comments to this strategy?
Okay, we'll make sure you respond to the consultation later. Thank you. Just a quick one, the community safety consultation, community safety strategy consultation as well, please.
If you can see, these have been left on your chairs. The Safer Communities team is consulting on their strategy for the next 3 years. On the reverse, you will find the questions, which is putting on, just describing the 3 key points that are covered in the strategy, asking if you agree with them or you don't agree with them. And there's a space at the bottom to add your comments. Consultations on until the 21st of December. If you prefer to go online, there's a QR code so you can scan it on your phone. But it is available on the website as well. And if you email any of us, we can send out, there are some online consultation sessions for questions and answers if people want to just log on to them as well. Thank you. You can do, I mean, if you let us know, we'll come and get them from you.
You come and get them from us.
Yeah. Oh, give them to Councillor Lukey, he'll drop them off.